Well, you introduced me as one of the co-founders of Pittwater Natural Heritage Association, and that is a land care group, and we're based up in the northern part of Sydney in the Pittwater area, Pittwater Natural Heritage Association, and we usually just refer to it as PINHA. So if I say that by accident, that's what I'm talking about. And we started that association back in 1993 because there was a particular piece of bushland in Mona Vale that was owned by the state government, and it had been set aside as a possible TAFE site, but they decided that they would sell it for multi-unit housing. But there was some bushland on it, so it was reduced, the development was reduced in size, but as far as we're concerned, some of the bush was saved, but the major outcome was our association, and we've been going ever since. And our aims are to care for the bushland in our area, and we do have quite a lot of bushland reserves that the council manages. We're next to Garrigal and Ku-ring-gai Chase National Parks, and there's a lot of bush on road reserves and on quite a bit on private land. So our aims are to make people aware of what we've got and to the threats that it faces from development, and particularly weeds, because we're right in the suburbs in spite of having bush all around. And there's a lot of development going on. And to interact with our local council, which is currently Northern Beaches Council, either to encourage them to do better or to object to what they're not doing, or to support them where we approve of them. So, but behind all that, I mean, many of our PINHA members are bush carers. Many of us work in several different bush care groups, and the point of that is, of course, it's mostly reducing weeds, but very often when we're working, at least one of us is very good at insects and spiders. So we're aware that, the plants are only a small part of the environment that we're looking after. Now, going back a bit, when I was a child, about 4 or 5, we moved from Cremorne into a house in Mossman where there was a very big derelict sort of garden, and my father was interested in that, and I used to potter around after him when I was very little, and I was lucky enough to live there for many, many years and came to know all the plants and be interested in the insects. I used to collect insects, and I'm sorry to say I did kill a few butterflies and beetles and things, but it made me aware of and got me very interested in invertebrates. And as you know, invertebrates are, and I've learnt this more recently, they're 99% of all living species are invertebrates, so they're incredibly important. And so one of the things that we do with PINHA is publish our newsletter, which has sort of nature notes that I write and other people contribute. And we also publish another one called Pittwater Nature. And then many of the articles are looking at invertebrates, and we have people who contribute photos and so on. And we're aware of how incredibly complicated the ecosystem is. So although people can be readily encouraged to care for or worry about koalas or platypus or something, in fact, probably all those animals have many, many parasites and insects, and they're part of a major ecosystem that they're just part of all that. And so really we have to care about all of it. And I think that and Jayden might, and many of you would probably be familiar with this, that if very young children get exposed to or encouraged to be out in nature and appreciate it and to enjoy it, then that sort of love and interest and affection is very influential, particularly at such a young age, and lasts them lifelong. It certainly has in my case. It's just absolutely marvellous. I have to say I don't subscribe to any faith, but a friend of mine signs his emails in his signature. He says, "Nature, the cathedral of awe." And there's hardly a day goes by when I'm not outside thinking, this is absolutely marvellous. I'm awestruck by whatever it is I'm seeing in nature. So, and I got involved in bush regeneration after I had done a course in horticulture in the 80s. And during horticulture, then I learned about bush regeneration, and that really, that seemed the most wonderful thing to do. But I think, we've got to be aware we can't all do all these things. I mean, if everyone could get involved in bush care and encourage the council and their friends to do it, that would be fantastic. But another thing we can all do to raise awareness and the caring for biodiversity is to support other organisations that do wonderful things like BirdLife Australia, Rainforest Rescue, and various organisations buy land that is threatened with development. Rainforest Rescue buys back land up in the Daintree area that was subdivided in the days of Joe Bjelke-Petersen, and some of it is being cleared and some of it they're replanting, revegetating. So there's lots of ways we can be aware and ways to support protection of biodiversity. And that includes creatures that people really don't like. I mean, it's easy to be fond of koalas and nice furry things and pretty birds, but we've got to be aware of all of them. Even small, insignificant insects are all important. They're all in the cathedral of awe. So, we've got a big task because, as we've been hearing, there's a lot of threats, and in our area, a lot of the threats come from development. Because if there are trees in the way of a big house, and people seem to be building bigger and bigger houses where once there were small seaside cottages, many of those trees can be removed, and the biodiversity just must take a big hit. But we've got to try to get laws improved and changed to protect it better. And so that's one of the things that Pittwater Natural Heritage can do. And being a volunteer, for me, it made a huge impact on my life. People think, I don't have, volunteering is all about giving. But in fact, I benefited enormously from it. I learnt so much about all sorts of things, about the natural world, but also about organisations and how to get on with people and how to interact with council members and lots of things. It's really very, very powerful thing to do, and that's probably not news to most people. I think I've probably had my say now. It's a bit different from Jayden, but I must say I know Jayden, and I think if we could only clone Jayden and Jayden's friends, the world would be, we'd be all very optimistic about the future of the natural world. Thanks.